this might be actually my favorite part of the project.
Okay.
So for me, this part is so special. This is on page 20. It's the section called Defining the Sacred. And it's so special because we social scientists often have to decide at the outset how we're going to measure the phenomenon that we're interested in. And that's really helpful. It helps us sort through large amounts of data in a systematic way that lets us really understand that phenomenon. But the downside of it is that sometimes we might miss some things that we didn't expect to find. So I love this section of the report because actually when we say defining the sacred, we're talking about young people's definition of the sacred, right? So we actually asked young people how they would define it. And I just love the way that we ultimately ended up displaying it in these kind of like word bubbles that show all of the different terms that young people used and have smaller bubbles and bigger bubbles to represent the frequency with which those words were used. I gotta say, that's my favorite part, I think.
I appreciate that too, because there's a richness here that comes from the different ways that we gather data. You know, sometimes I think there's an understandable fear about data not being able to tell us useful information, for one, because it's hard to understand, or it's hard to see, or it doesn't kind of get into this complexity even that you just pointed to. But what's neat about this report is that it does so many things, right? It has the quantitative pieces, so it has numbers, right? So it gives us a sense of part of the landscape of what's happening here among young people this year, right? And updates what we know already. But it also fleshes that out in really meaningful ways in, as you said, in the ways that young people themselves, the words that they're using. And also, and this is sort of a hint to pieces at the end too, it also has these really cool ways that practitioners themselves talk about how they think about the use of this information and understanding this information in their context. So in their own work with young people too. So I love how it kind of makes it like come alive in a way that we don't often see in reports from social science, right?
Absolutely. No, what I loved about working on this particular report was we really tried hard to incorporate the voices of young people and then tried to pick practitioners who were really in the trenches with young people, who would be able to speak to what was going on from their particular vantage point. And so I think that really comes alive. Yes, that's a springtide voice, and there's some really rich insights from both young people and adults in this report.